Girls don't do memes, they don't join the army, they don't make weapons, they don't make TikToks, and they don't make jokes. They're just AI bots that are somehow, with everything they do, no matter what it is, trying to manipulate men on the internet. Any thoughts on what we should tackle first here? Girl conspiracy. It's something else. We could start with that. Yeah, so I got recommended this. I clicked on it because I was like, e-girl conspiracy. I wanna know what that is, and what you guys think. So we had thoughts. Oh yeah, again, I randomly clicked this because this person debated me with this title here, and yeah, I mean, I won't explain it anymore, I suppose. So just let it play.
Today's a strange one. Just letting everyone know, this entire video is the result of a comment, a singular comment. This guy posted this thing and I thought to myself, that sounds hilarious. Now I'm sitting here.
I also don't know who this YouTuber is, and I had never watched a different video of theirs. Comment, hey man, could you cover the army e-girl trend? Many people think it's a concerted effort with governmental involvement to boost army recruiting. The channel Lujan could be a good start. Look what any of their other videos are like. And I still haven't.
The entire video on it. So if you ever have crazy ideas that you want me to look at, just tell me. No promises, but it does happen. With that said, I don't think it's hilarious anymore. Now I think it's fascinating and also probably terrible. Let's dive in. To begin, we need context. Something a lot of people might not know, the US Army has been systematically missing its own recruitment targets for years. Some people chalk this up to the growing distrust of institutions by Generation Z. Some people assign blame to COVID-19 and post-pandemic economic headwinds. But the simple truth is that nearly every branch of the United States military is failing to achieve target numbers for recruitment, some for the first time in decades. Where am I going with this? Well, to best...
Like how he didn't, first off, like, mention anything about, like, you know, the whole war on terror, like, the endless war on terror. It was not super great PR for the U.S. Army. I mean, the U.S. Army hasn't had any endeavors lately that have made it look good. Like, at all, if any. Like, I can't think of a single one. You know? Yeah, usually, yeah, numbers should be that, because, you know, people want the benefits, like, which is, like, correct me if I'm wrong, because, you know, you're actually in the Army, but, like, the primary reason that people do tend to enlist, it's typically, from what I gather, it's not necessarily out of, like, a super strong patriotic sentiment. Yes, job security, decent pay, college tuition, etc. Our military operations have been not looked upon super favorably, I guess, since, like, Vietnam. I don't know.
Explain that, I need to refine focus to talk about one particular segment of the military called the 4th Psychological Operations Group, 4th POG for short. 4th POG is best known for its emphasis on psychological warfare and was originally activated in 1967 during the Vietnam War. After a brief deactivation in 1971, it was reactivated again in 1972 and moved to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, later becoming an official branch of the U.S. Army called psy-op in 2006, along with the 8th POG, both of which now fall under the 1st Special Forces Command. Boring? Yes.
Okay, pausing it again, but, like, this whole thing, I didn't do my own research on this, but just from, like, just from thinking about it momentarily, not like they didn't do psyops before Vietnam. Like, I would assume that subterfuge and, like, a spy operations have probably, like, always been a part of the military. I guess that could be different than psyop, of spying falls under that umbrella or not. This dude doesn't really go very far. Like, it doesn't go into it very much. He just kind of, like, he's gonna, like, psyops.
Relevant also, yes. See, in May of 2022, the 1st Special Forces Command publicly released a recruitment video.
Would spies count as psyop? Is, I guess, my question.
Called Ghosts in the Machine Psy-War. That video brazenly illustrates that psychological manipulation is a centerpiece of modern warfare and also emphasizes the new...
Yeah, but okay, so, like, but wouldn't it have always been? And, like, I like this dude, this video is so frustrating. This dude doesn't even, like, go in, like, who is he alleging that this psy-op, which he hasn't even explained yet. So there's no context so far in this video besides the title, right? And so he's just, like, right now talking about psyops without saying who's being targeted by this or anything like that. Oh, I dislike this video because this video is stupid. Here's my opinion.
Tier of intelligence.
I
One
never
particularly
dislike
striking
videos
visual
either.
comes when the evolution of warfare screens end in a close-up shot of a finger just mindlessly scrolling a smartphone. And the subtext of that visual is that the battlefield is now digital in our very pockets.
For the army. So
whether or not you believe that explicitly is up to you, but the simple truth is that the United States military is openly recruiting for its psychological warfare
military
division,
does recruitment.
and it doesn't stop there. In July of 2020, after a damning report from The Nation, the United States Army drew criticism for its activity on the live streaming platform Twitch.
I think I'm 33.
What had been happening was a thinly veiled recruitment endeavor aimed at susceptible young men, primarily gamers, even so far as to offer...
This is true, but it's not really... I don't think it was really in disguise. It is true. So Twitch gets a shout out here, which is also why I was like, this might be fun to watch. It's true, the US Army was doing a whole esports thing where they tried to, but their channel was laughably pathetic. They did not get viewership, were irrelevant in terms of the Twitch ecosystem. So I find it funny the way this guy's going to talk about their esports endeavor, their esports operation, as if it was some like whole big thing when they failed pretty hard, didn't they? From what I remember. I mean, I guess I could be wrong on that, but I remember like being just pretty lame. Nothing came of it because people weren't really into it. Your friend tried to get on that team though? That's funny. They did go around to like dream hacks and things like different gaming conventions and shit. Yeah, they from what I remembered, they just got kind of ran out by the Twitch community. But this guy's about to talk about it like it was huge.
Giveaways that simply redirected them to the Army recruitment page. Quote, Twitch viewers in the Army's channel are repeatedly presented with an automated chat prompt that says they could win an Xbox Elite Series 2 controller, an enhanced controller with customizable options and extra paddles for advanced play that costs upwards of $200, and a link where they can enter the giveaway. It, too, redirects them to a recruiting form with no additional mention of a contest, odds, total number of winners, or when a drawing will occur. End quote.
Dude, a controller. Not even an Xbox. Like, there's so many more sinister things that the Army does. Like, the fact that part of No Child Left Behind, George Bush's whole, like, education reform initiative, part of the deal was that, like, for schools to get No Child Left Behind funding, they had to allow high schools, mind you, not colleges, they had to allow Army recruiters to come in and attempt to, like, lure high school kids into the Army. In my high school, recruiters came multiple times, like every year. This guy's all up in arms about the fact that they were giving away an Xbox controller and didn't do it.
The military obviously distanced themselves from that narrative, but the giveaways that they ran were eventually suspended from the platform entirely for violating its terms, which was fairly definitive.
50 viewers.
According to Forbes, in 2020, military recruitment on Twitch may be controversial, but it isn't likely to stop anytime soon.
I like how
it turns out that their claim was absolutely
how just highlighting
correct.
Stuff.
It wasn't until 2022 that we would begin to understand the full scope of their efforts, but when it happened, the picture was very, very distinct. In documents reviewed by Motherboard, it became clear that the US military was planning to pay streamers and influencers millions of dollars to reach Generation Z through video games like Call of Duty. The documents show that...
Not really what it says. They plan to spend $1 million on sponsoring the event. 1 million, not millions. It was on an event, not influencers.
The US military considered gaming and, in particular, Call of Duty as a potentially useful branding and recruiting tool. For example, the Army proposed using Twitch influencers to create original content videos showcasing the wide range of skill sets offered by the Army and to use influencers to familiarize their fans on Army values and opportunities.
He'll get there.
The Army also wanted to throw tournaments that featured soldiers and top names in gaming. Another goal of the campaigns was to increase the Army's favorability in viewer surveys. End quote. Remember that. Familiarize their fans on Army values and opportunities, as well as increase the Army's favorability. That's important. Now, personally, I would consider this logically obvious, but for those that don't see the connection, the US Army now has its own esports team. And why would that be? Because gamers are a hyper-susceptible and valuable demographic for the Army, the military in general, for a multitude of reasons.
Okay, wait, I have a question about this. What do you guys think about this? Do you think that gamers are a highly valuable audience or a highly valuable demographic for the Army? I also remember hearing/reading recently that something like around 50% or greater, like of the youth in this country are not able to pass the fitness requirements that one would have to pass to join the army. And I mean, I'm not saying anything about gamers in particular. However, gamers physically fit enough generally as a whole, if about half of kids aren't fit enough to join the army, are gamers a subgroup that is more fit typically than the generation overall, or are they a subgroup that is typically less fit? Now, I'm not saying that gamers can't be fit, but I'm saying just like statistically, I would imagine gamers having a higher level of a lower level of fitness. I was about to say a higher level of unfitness. You know what I mean? And if 50% overall couldn't pass the test, the requirements, then really could most gamers? I don't know. I don't know, man. Plus, I was thinking about this earlier today, and doesn't really have. It's not directly to do with this video, but I think the idea that gamers are a good target group for the army is potentially wrong, or like not well thought out, because why would you join the army if you play video games, if you play war games? Why would you want to join the army? Why would that make you want to join the army? Because you're already getting what you want out of those games, right? You're like you're getting the vicarious experience, as far as you're concerned, of battle through Call of Duty. If you're like a hardcore player, if you're on Twitch, why would you want to do that in real life when you can do it in video games? If you had an itch for like, warfare or weaponry or whatever, if you had like a weapon fetish, aren't you already getting that itch scratched from playing Call of Duty? I don't know. I don't play war games, so I don't know if it makes you want to do war more, or if your urge is like satisfied through that. You know what I mean? Would it really make you want to experience that in real life, or would it do the opposite? Would you already feel satiated in that desire through engaging with Call of Duty in that way? I wonder if it's like actually backward what they're doing. I wonder if violent war video games are actually a net negative for the army, because they let kids and young men and people in general who would be drawn to that type of atmosphere and type of thing. I wonder if it lets them experience that in the safety of their own home. Therefore, they don't ever feel the need or desire to go out and actually join the army. You know what I mean? Whereas like back in the day, if you wanted to get that, if you were interested at all in that, you didn't have video games. Like, right, the closest you would have would be like, not even always movies, only movies recently too. But do you know what I'm trying to say here? Yeah, even if they would be more, I could agree with you there that they probably would be more open. But I think still that maybe video games overall have contributed to this steep decline in enrollment because of that. Because if you wanted to experience war, if that was interesting to you before, you had no way to even get a simulated war experience, right? Because if you play Call of Duty every day, you're like, ain't no thing. Like, okay, cool. You got some guns and shit. Oh, I don't care.
In research from the University of Liverpool's Institute for Psychology, Health and Society, which was designed to study whether or not gamers would be adequate military drone candidates.
I do think that that's right. I do think that's correct, 1%. I don't think that people mostly join the military anyway because they want to shoot guns. Over in the scheme of things, probably not relevant, but if anything, I would imagine possibly a net negative.
Quote, "We measured the personality constructs such as how conscientious they were, how agreeable they were, how open to experiences they were, their neuroticism, extroversion, and so on. What these tell us is how they are going to react in given situations." End quote. Her findings indicated that gamers were outscoring traditional aviation pilots, and while the research itself was far from comprehensive, the findings are not even unique. From CBC, as far back as 2013, quote, video game players may be the ideal candidates to operate military drones, end quote,
which
was based on research done by Professor Missy Cummings at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. The effort to recruit gamers by the military is actually so aggressive, the Air Force wanted to develop its own video game for the purpose of identifying and recruiting potential standout candidates. From military.com, in a statement given by Lieutenant General Stephen Quast, quote, "If they're interested in flying and they see this game the Air Force has, if I find a 15-year-old kid that's just brilliant,
he can just
I'll probably send a message to that IP address saying, go tell your mom and dad that you are special, and that I will offer you a $100,000 signing bonus, and I will send you to Harvard for 4 years for free," end quote. My point is, the United States military has not only identified a demographic that is easily influenced, they have also demonstrated a sizable funding objective aimed at influencers.
So he doesn't back that one up at all. He's just like, gamers are easily influenced. Says who? Offended. But the pay being my cousin joined the Air Force, actually, and because he's poor. Like, he was poor. I don't know if he's poor. I haven't talked to him in years, but like, joined the Army because he flunked out of school, high school, and grew up poor, like, and got a girl pregnant. So
and video games during a period of time where recruiting is progressively falling. In addition, they openly advertise and recruit on social media for the Psychological Operations Unit, Psychological Warfare, based out of Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
You're a gullible gamer.
So how does it all tie together, and how could I ever possibly justify the video's title? For that, we need to talk about an influencer named Haley Lujan.
How are you going to justify
Haley Lujan initially began posting on TikTok during 2020, mostly doing random skits, song voiceovers, etc., and jumping on popular trends. However, in 2021, she started intermittently posting footage of herself in military attire. And then in September of 2022, it became effectively her only content. Now, when I say military attire, I don't mean camo you just buy at Walmart. I mean her casually playing with multi-$100,000 DoD drones, or doing TikToks from inside Apache helicopters.
RC
See, she has legitimate access to military tech on a level that civilians just don't. And from there, it only gets stranger. Back in 2019, before she got popular on TikTok and Instagram, a comment emerged where she claimed to be stationed at Fort Bragg, and even directly stated that she was training to be a psychological operations specialist. A little bit more poking around, and one can find a LinkedIn profile with her name and picture, listing her occupation as a psychological operations specialist since July of 2019, and the list goes on. It actually isn't even really a novel phenomenon at all. For the past few years, a bevy of young Israeli, female, attractive...
Let's stop there for now. So his assertion here is that Haley girl is doing a psy-op somehow. She's posting military content. I guess what he's trying to say is that she is a psy-op, not that she's in that department in the military. I guess she's somehow like a bot, somehow like an AI, somehow like she was hired to pretend to be in the military. What the plan was, I guess, from his POV here, is that the whole thing, that makes no sense. Okay. Clearly, she's just a girl who joined the military in that department. Because if she's a psy-op, she's a horrible psy-op. She has a LinkedIn that says she's part of the psy-op department. Why would you be that obvious if it was actually some sort of like secret plot? Instead of just a girl in the military. Just a girl in the military that posts TikToks. The funniest thing about it to me was that he was like, and all of a sudden she started posting military content. I don't know, bro. Could she have joined the military? What? Hey, ignore this bikini girl for a minute. It's just a girl who joined the military. And he's like talking about her like she's some sort of like secret government plan, and it's like a random TikTok girl who joined the military. I just feel like it's so ridiculous. Like, why would you, if you were some sort of like part of some super secret operation to trick gamers into joining the army, why would you have a LinkedIn with psychological operations specialist title on it? Does that make any sense in this person's brain? Because I'm pretty sure that's his thesis, that she's like a honeypot, like she's like a bait to lure in gamers to join the army. And then he just suddenly switches tacks to the Israeli army, where yes, and this is a point that I was going to make as well, QB, he's about to be very suspicious of these Israeli girls and women in the military, but he does not seem to know that in Israel, military service is mandatory for men and women. Just doesn't know that.
For the past few years, a bevy of young Israeli, female, attractive IDF soldiers have been posting relentlessly on TikTok.
This whole video is essentially like, girl, weapon, girl, cute, army, I like, can't be. So
influencing public
ridiculous.
Perception of IDF forces.
It must be about me. It must be about guys. It must be about dudes. It can't just be girls
Israel
in the army because they have to be and living their life and enjoying TikTok because they like TikTok.
Campaigns during key moments with mixed results. One such report from the Associated Press in March of 2023 outlined a campaign that failed to gain traction using fake social media profiles on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Haley Lujan produces content that explicitly tells her followers, don't go to college, become a farmer, or join the military. She seems to have fully embraced the culture of conspiracy,
military,
even posting jokes about how the U.S. military spends $100 million on advertising, only to be outdone by a 21-year-old girl with a TikTok.
Just cannot believe that there's a girl in the army. It's just crazy.
Videos produced on her YouTube channel are steeped in internet meme culture with an emphasis on lonely men.
The internet.
Sure, it's a booming industry right now. Young men are currently more lonely, isolated, and self-conscious than ever before, which makes them extremely susceptible to manipulation. But let's remember the full context. Haley Lujan is posting cutesy videos of military equipment and promoting different branches in the comments, while tagging videos with phrases like, the best job in the world. Remember, as cited in the documents obtained by Motherboard, the U.S. military explicitly wants influencers to create videos showcasing the wide range of skill sets available in the military, familiarize their fans with opportunities, like flying an Apache helicopter maybe, and increase the Army's favorability. A psy-war specialist, shortly after moving to none other than Fort Bragg, where the 4th Psychological Operations Group is based out of, which is a unit that already openly recruits for psychological warfare on social media, cultivates an audience very, very quickly on social media, suddenly pivoting into military hardware demonstrations and recruitment videos aimed at lonely men online.
Oh, that's so suspicious.
And her personal website is even called psy-ops. The military branch that she herself seems to be a part of describes the skill set of their soldiers in the following way. Quote, these soldiers are known for their communication expertise using...
God, though, imagine if the army was actually this bad at psyops. Imagine if they were this bad at it. This is painful to watch, but this was posted 2 weeks ago, and it has 282K views.
Conventional tactics to persuade and influence foreign allies and enemies in support of U.S. Army objectives. End quote. What does that sound like? Well, it sounds like the e-girl warfare conspiracy theory. At the end of the day, I can't say for sure. At the very least, this is an influencer who is being allowed special access to use and film herself with large-scale military hardware.
You haven't showed that. You haven't showed that. You showed her playing with an RC toy.
She has fully embraced the culture of conspiracy, again, at the very least, leaning into the idea that all of it is just psychological manipulation, openly. And maybe...
She's openly talking about it being... Could that be because she has a bunch of dumbass, idiots in her TikTok comments like you trying to accuse her of being a psyop and she thinks it's funny and goes along with the joke? That couldn't be it, because girls don't make jokes. Girls don't do memes. They don't join the army. They don't like weapons. They don't make TikToks, and they don't make jokes. They're just AI bots that are somehow, with everything they do, no matter what it is, trying to manipulate men on the internet.
Just an example of someone finding a profit mechanism and sticking to it. She is, after all, showing up in very odd places, like a penthouse party with Donald Trump Jr., so that's something. But again, at the end of the day, I can't
TikTok
say for
famous
sure.
And in the army.
Or, and this is where we take the leap and give into the conspiracies just a bit, or she's a crafted product of the U.S. military, which has demonstrated a very obvious goal of reaching young men through social media. First with gaming, now with secondary means. And the campaign has been so successful, they don't even need to hide it, because the worst thing that happens is people just joke around about it, subsequently making her even more famous as she incrementally changes public perception of the military simply by way of her very existence.
Dude, this guy is actually skilled. This guy's actually skilled. He could just he just anything. He seems like anything he could make into something sinister, a sinister conspiracy. Literally just a normal ass girl posting TikToks, and he's made a freaking entire video about her like being
a real thing. When relevant video game genres such as first-person and tactical shooters are skewed to a 93, even 96% male-to-female ratio, according to data from Quantic Foundry. A large proportion of modern terminally online in a minority gamers, demographic couldn't have are almost never interacting with women. Instead, there is a trend of parasocial relationships forming, where an influencer wields excess power over the emotional state and decision-making process of their audience, despite that relationship existing in only one direction.
Nothing to do with it.
I have to just ask this flat out. Why wouldn't a declining military that is failing to meet its own recruitment benchmarks for the past few years turn to this highly valuable, parasocially crippled demographic and influence them to join with non-traditional tactics?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they simply reframe their approach and use a new method that avoids typical pitfalls, while simultaneously putting an entirely different and freckled face on the industry, and at the same time appeal directly to an introverted demographic?
Yeah, like, okay, that's what I say, there's so many things about this. It's like first of all, like I've said, the self-centeredness of the whole idea. Like, bro, everything is not about you, okay? You know, people have their own lives and interests, and not everything is about you and your gamer friends, guy, okay? Obviously, that aside, I'm sure that the US Army does not hate her TikTok's success. I'm sure that once the US Army noticed it, they were like, oh, we could use this to our advantage. I would easily believe that. And I'm sure then they were like, oh, hey, you know, let's invite that TikTok girl to film this thing we're doing here, because that'll be good for us. Of course. But the idea that they, like, picked some random ass, like, girl out of Iowa or whatever, and we're like, we're gonna make you a TikTok star. Do you think that the U.S. Army knows, like, how to succeed on TikTok? They couldn't get more than 100 viewers to their Twitch stream at any point, I don't think. The U.S. Army is now TikTok geniuses. Girl, and I love the agency that this takes away from the girl. She's literally just a pawn in this guy's, like, story. She's just, like, a tool. She had nothing to do with any of this. She definitely didn't build her own platform and content. She has no interest in the whole thing. She's not even part of the army. She's a huge obvious flaw in this, too, is that if the U.S. Army was going to pay influencers, which they do pay influencers, but they don't a nobody on a social media platform and then try to build them up from nothing. They would approach already established creators who have their own audience that the army can reach. Like, what would be the point of create psy-op TikToker instead of just contacting an already famous TikToker, having them do an ad? I'm sure there's multiple people in the army. I'm sure there's a whole department. It's not like they have the magical power to just take someone and make them a TikTok star, is my point. Again, I know that they pay creators and I know that they pay influencers, but they pay creators who have audiences for them to reach. The whole theory is just batshit insane and ridiculously stupid.
They've been aggressively chasing since the early 2000s.
Yeah, they do it across YouTube and multiple genres.
They have absolutely no reason not to do that. Honestly, at the end of the day, I just don't know. Yeah. But after that guy commented about the e-girl military...
But I think that this YouTuber is not even... I think that he knows that what he's saying is bullshit because of how many times he says, I just don't know. He's literally just farming, like, news out of, like, weirdos who already want to believe this. The fact that he does not seem convinced and he's talking about it like it's... Like he's presenting this information, but he doesn't sound convinced at all. He should have just debunked it if he knows it's ridiculous. So stupid.
Trend. I never expected it to actually become a real fascinating story. That's it. If you want to support the channel, check out the links down below. If you want to use a VPN, everybody can use a VPN. Make sure...
Oh, man. Yeah, so that was just a quickie, but algorithm decided I should see this video, so now you guys all had to see it too and have all the same brain cells killed off that I did. Welcome. I was just blown away by the lack of critical thinking skills that were applied to that narrative.